Hello and welcome to a project that's been ongoing since the early 1990s, so naturally you're going to come in the middle. This film has two very distinct parts. The first is sensible advice on wiring, which is pointing you to some YouTubers I really respect. The second is more about procrastination and making a start on a project. And then 3 ways that I got from fear to fun doing my first ever vehicle loom. For proper grown-up step-by-step advice, go seek out Superfast Matt or Matt Brown. He's a properly qualified automotive engineer and he's done all these crazy projects which are great fun, but he's done them really properly. So the trick for home building is to buy this module at the centre which handles all the relays. Here in the UK, Gasolini is really known for his point of view car driving, in particular his steam engine one. But he's also great on how-tos, and he's built this little Lancia Special. He's got one of these modules at the heart of his system, which he bought from Car Builder Solutions. I'm only a happy customer of Car Builder Solutions, and they've got a video on this module, and they've also got a video on basic wiring and also how to do these kind of test boards, which I think is a great idea. If you use heavy-duty switches, heavy-duty cable, you don't need relays. And you can also just screw it all together with terminal blocks, so none of this crimping and pins. And I basically built the centre, tested it on a trailer board. Then I made, in effect, a trailer board that I could test off the back of a car. I did the front in a very similar way. And the whole thing, plugged together in about half an hour. A secret location somewhere in southeast London. Unusual start for a vehicle wiring video. So I've come to this favourite cafe. I'm just going to sit and think and doodle like you're here with me and talk it through. I was a bit self-conscious in the cafe, but I might actually try a walk and talk. I think the thing is conquering the fear. And that's the same with starting anything. And in the newspaper today, there was a house refurb. I used to be terrified of putting a picture up on the wall. And a toaster is a scary thing, and everything's scary to start with. My kids have grown up with me saying the first 100 times the tricky ones. So you've really just got to make a start and get some practice and build some confidence. So I kind of tricked myself into doing these things by saying it's only a test, it's only for training, it's only a start, and then you just keep going until you think that is actually a finished thing, that is actually useful. And this vehicle wiring for Edward, it was done very quickly. It was done with tiny budget, but really his project is no more than a bit of garden sculpture at the moment. And if we're going to do the Paris-Dakar, if we're going to try and win the Formula One championship, we'd do it differently. And it's interesting seeing someone like Elon Musk having a go at space. And he's doing it a bit differently from NASA. Fortunately, he hasn't killed anyone yet. But, it's having a go rather than it's got to be right first time. Now, when it does start to matter, where does the confidence come from? And that comes through having done it a lot of times, having done a lot of testing, and having got it signed off by someone who knows what they're talking about. So, we're not going to take this car on the road till it's had an MOT test. And it's being looked at by my mate Robin, who's trained as a recording engineer, did stage lighting. He's worked for Channel 4, he's worked on films, he's wired cars, he's wired boats. So, he's a good friend to have around to look at this sort of stuff. And some of the strange ideas that sort of run past him, and he go, no, that is all right. This is their mud-clipped kitchen, old saucepans and things which kids play with. I love how far these things end up going. Stone circle of all things down there. Now, the first thing to talk about is these trailer plugs, and they're freely available in various different qualities. and they're approved for road use. So you buy something that has been signed off by large companies and government agencies and all the rest of it, and they say this is good enough. It turns out they're not as reliable as I'd like. On installation day, our problem was giving the socket a wobble, and I look on forums and people who tow a lot, often you do have to give it a little wiggle and an extra push, which obviously isn't ideal. But at the stage we're at, it's brilliant because I can make the backlights, test them on a tow car, and I can make the control center in the dashboard, and I can test it on a trailer board. So I've got the confidence that my backlights are all right and the front is all right. If in time we decide that plugging it together and giving it a wiggle is a pain and it is an extra point of failure, then we cut the plugs out and join the leads. Or we go get a better plug. And there's lots of different motorsport grade plugs. So people are always pulling the front end off, 4x4s, and plugging the front end back on. I walk around the Goodwood paddock and all these sort of glass fibre flip front MGs and things. They've all got some kind of plug. They're a lot of money, these plugs, but they're military spec, aviation spec, so it's still doable. Compromise we might come to is we have a high spec plug for use, and then the trailer plug, we make a converter so we can plug one into the other for testing. So it's still got this trick of using the trailer plug for testing. But the other thing it comes with, obviously, is the flex, and it's a 7-core flex with standard colours, which any RAC patrolman, any AA patrolman will recognise. You can look it up, and so it's sort of self-documenting. You can just Google it to know what colour wire does what. So I had an old Lancia, and it was an ITV engineer, John Savage, who wired that for me. And rather than using all black wire like a standard Lancia Aurelia, he just ran a piece of this down. He went, well, that's the MOT stuff sorted. It's just so straightforward. You don't have to build a loom on something the size of a table tennis table. Just run this bit of multi-core down and you're done. The last unusual element really is all the screw terminals. And I think of them as naughty because you look under an MG dashboard or something and it's some of these chocolate blocks, you go, oh gosh, some bodger's been in. And you associate them with amateur slapdash shortcuts rather than the proper crimp connectors. But the crimp connectors, really, it's for manufacturing, that they can just plug these things together on the production line in seconds rather than having to do all the little screws up. And it turns out on aircraft and boats and things, it's not unusual at all. So it's time consuming, but in terms of my skill level, it was confidence inspiring. I can wire a plug with a screwdriver. It's also good for modifying because it's not, I've got to remake that connector. I unscrew it, I chop it a bit shorter, strip the lead, put it back in again. And these cars are works in progress. So I'm 50 miles away from where he is, so I could do that all on the bench, could do it all on the kitchen table, could do it on the spare bedroom, and then later on, put it on the car and fit it and run the cables, where you want them to, and all of that. So these trailer sockets, screw terminals, multi-core, meant that we could get something done and we could move it forward. And a car that might have been broken up and sold for spares, it's still a car and it's sitting behind his house, and hopefully it'll soon be on the road. But you've kind of got to compromise, you've got to work within your skill level, and maybe think a little bit outside the conventional to make some progress, and all progress is good progress. So as well as working on a bench off the car, something else that I put a lot of effort into nowadays is making sure everything is accessible and easily removed. So on Edward's car, the middle of the dashboard folds forward so I can get to all of the terminals. And lots of the different bits just bolt on. And I was doing it so I could build off the car and then put it all together, but it's also great for maintenance. So the battery isolator switch is on a panel, and then that panel bolts to the dashboard, and there's a switch panel that goes underneath the dashboard, and then there's that pod that hinges forward from it, and all of these separate bits can be handled separately. Colin Chapman's principle was every component has to do 2 or 3 things. So this is the complete opposite. This is like a heavy military vehicle where field repair and maintenance is a lifesaver. Being able to keep your vehicle going, and if you haven't got a support team, and if you've got some shonky self-built vehicle, being able to see what's going on, stick a probe in, fix it with a screwdriver and a bit of coat hanger, that's all good. Rather than, back to Elon Musk, needing him to permission you to open your door, or pay BMW because you want to turn the seat heater on and you haven't paid your subscription. So keeping things really simple and modular is a win. The other thing is deciding what features you can do without. So decided we didn't need to have relays, because you can get switches that will take the current, including the starter motor. So if you look back at early vehicles, some didn't have any fuses. And that starter motor, you'd pull a string that pulled a big lever, and it'd be a big old Flash Gordon junk type connection. You can do it with your foot, so that's quite a common switch. I also really like these dip switches that used to be on the floor that you'd ka-junk, that take the full headlight current. So you don't need a skinny wire to a relay, and then the relay is where the power switching happens, if you use a big switch. I was looking around the submarine last month, and that's just full of these huge, great junk controls, and you'd have men running up and down turning this stuff on and off with a big lever to take all of that paramilitary vessel through the water type electricity. So that's another compromise. In a production car, that's extra money for the copper. It's expensive. In a racing car, it's extra weight. These cables are heavy. If you've got a complicated car, all of these 1990s Jaguars and Mercedes, it's a very heavy thing, the loom. But if you're not running heated seats and mirrors and locks and windows and all the rest of it, you're just basically wanting it to be as simple as a trailer on the back and a couple of headlights to see where you're going on the front, you can make it a lot simpler. Son moved up north. It was the lack of aircraft noise that he really noticed. So as well as this, the first 100 times the tricky ones saying, and another one of mine is, it's amazing what you can get done if you set your standards low enough. And the loom for Edward, it's just the MOT stuff. We're lucky with that car that the engine's on a magneto, and the generator and spark, it's all in one unit like they have on aircraft, and the only switch you need is a switch to turn it off. It's just one wire, that's it. But you can keep the engine loom completely separate. You could keep all of the switches for the engine on a separate panel. One idea was I'd stick that on the gearbox of the Reliant sort of power module. So it's just keeping the scope small enough that you've got enough confidence to get something done. And even if it's just a learning exercise, you know what, why not make a start? Why not have a go? And I'm going to do that now. I'm going to go home, I'm going to get my big scissors out and chop a trailer extension lead in half, and I'm going to dig out a few of these bits and bobs that I've bought and see if I can get just something started. And if I get something done enough days in a row, that adds up to a project, doesn't it?